Hello, welcome. This is Benjamin. So we're here for, I call that a show and tell about the Open IoT challenge. It's been now, I think, a month and a half that since the Open IoT challenge started. There's about 80 participants, 80 projects being built at the moment, and yeah, we thought it would be a good idea for all the participants to have an opportunity to join us, as well as some of the Eclipse IoT project leads like Julien was with us today. Julien is leading the Eclipse Leshan project. He's also very involved in California and Wakayama. So any question you may have on co-op, on lightweight M2M, Julien would be your guy. Julien, thanks for joining. And we have Dave from Eurotech. Dave Woodard is the project lead for Kura, and I think probably 1/3, if not more, of the IoT challenge applications are using Eclipse Kura one way or the other. So if you have any question regarding Kura, Dave would be your guy. We should have also Ian Craggs joining us. Hopefully Ian Craggs, for those who don't know, is very much involved in Paho and Mosquito, so everything MQTT. I know that, for example, Franz sent me and him actually a few questions earlier today, sorry, about MQTT-SN. So I hope Ian will join. So I see that we have 3-4 viewers by now. So guys, you have several ways to actually shoot your questions at our panel of experts. You can either use the Q&A in Google Hangouts, so you can hopefully find out pretty easily, although the Google UI is not always super clear. You can also use the comments on the Google events, and or you can ask to actually join the Hangouts directly. So just ping me like in the comments or in the Q&A, and I'd be happy to invite you, like via voice and video, right? If you want to exchange directly. So yeah, now I think the floor is to you guys. So let us know if you have any questions. It could be like short questions. It could be more hints, like if you want to have some hints as to how to use the technology best. Please let us know. We're here for you. And 7 viewers now, so I'm really hoping that we can help you. And don't be shy. You can certainly start by asking questions in the comments. We don't necessarily ask you to join in video, right? All right, so I'm monitoring the Q&A, monitoring the comments. You can also use Twitter if that's more convenient for you guys. I'm Codben on Twitter. I think Julien is, well, maybe I can actually, I will add that in the comment. So there's a question from Leon, but I'm not sure I actually understand the question in the Q&A. Could you please add share Hangouts link. I'm assuming you're talking about the link to join as a presenter. Is this what you're referring to, Leon? And or do you want me to invite you to join the video, I guess would be my next question. Yes, so following up on Leon's question, this is a Hangouts session. Unfortunately, Google limits the number of simultaneous participants to 10, which is why I didn't send the link that allows you to be a participant to all of you guys. So it's on a I mean, yeah, depending on who wants to talk, I'm adding that so as we never exceed the limit of 10 participants. So by now, Leon, you should have received an invitation and you can join as a participant, hopefully. Let me know if you have any issues. And Manolis says hello from Greece. So Manolis, I don't know if you were with us when I mentioned that, but we have Julien from Wacom and Leshan on the Hangouts. So I know you've been sending a couple questions earlier today regarding Lightweight M2M on the Arduino. I think you want to put Lightweight M2M on the ESP. So should you feel like you want to talk to Julien and ask Julien some questions in person, I'd be happy to invite you to join the Hangouts. There's several questions showing up, so that's great. I think that one is a question from Dave. So question regarding Kura/Eurotech, I guess. So let me just select the question so everyone knows I'm answering and we're answering that one. Regarding Eurotech, until now, Arun has been building his project with Bluemix. And browsing through the Eurotech dev guide, it shows Java and C++ support. Is there support for Node.js as well? So I'm not sure if it's a question actually regarding. So Bluemix certainly supports Java and C++ and Node, I think. Yeah, Dave, do you want to give a try at answering the question from Arun? I think if you need me to repeat the question, I'd be happy to do so, but you can probably see the question by yourself in the Q&A section of the Hangouts UI.
Yes, I see the question. I'm not sure I understand what the question is. Are they talking about using Eurotech instead of Bluemix? Is that the question?
I think that's the question, but yeah, I'm confused as to the support for Node.js. I guess, or maybe you can elaborate on how people are expected to connect to Eurotech's cloud. I guess 99% of your customers would be using Kura or the commercial version of Kura, right? So as underneath, under the hood, there would be MQTT messages being sent to your cloud. But I guess maybe the question is this possible to use another client stack to connect to your cloud, or does that even make sense to do so, or to try and do so?
Yeah, so the connection to the Eurotech cloud is just MQTT, so any MQTT client would be sufficient. There are some benefits to using the commercial version of Kura or Kura itself, but there's no limitation. I mean, the Eurotech cloud at its core is just an MQTT broker, so yeah, there should be no issue. Node.js should work fine, I would think.
Okay. So yeah, Aaron is elaborating on. So yeah, the question really is whether it's possible to use Node to connect to your text cloud.
Yeah, I think the main I guess point would be if you use your own client, so like Node.js, MQTT, or something of that nature. You would want to make sure you examine the data structures that we use for Eurotech Cloud, because that will be the only way you could actually see your data in the cloud. It doesn't prevent sending and receiving data at an MQTT level, but if you want to see it in the cloud and use all the REST calls, you would want to just pay attention to our data model, which we have documented online.
Yep. And yep, people would need to use protocol buffers as well, right? So you would need to.
Yep. Exactly.
All right. So a bunch of people have asked to actually join the Hangouts. I think I did probably send the invitations so as you can join as participants. But if that didn't work, please let me know in the Q&A or in the comments. I may need to send you the link via a different channel. I think I invited Manolis, I think I invited Marcelo as well from IoT into Space, and France is here too. So France, if you'd like to join, I'd be happy to invite you. So yeah, looks like invitation-wise, it wasn't the proper way to do so. So Marcelo, I did DM you the link to join on Twitter, and I will do the same with others. Manolis, you're invited as well. Hello, Juan from Chile. Juan, if you want to share more about what your project is about, feel free to let us know in the Q&A, and if you have actual questions, you can also either write them down, or we'd be happy to have you on the video. As well. So in the meantime, there's a question that I missed from Mahathir. Mahathir has actually been pretty active blogging about his project already. I wouldn't risk pronouncing the name of the project. It's called IoT Vaidia. It's about health monitoring. So yeah, Mahathir is asking about a recommendation about Eclipse projects to use for such an health monitoring project. So yeah, he's gone through Kura, through Paho. So Dave or Julian, I see that Ian has joined by now, which is great, as well as I think it's Manolis, is it? Yes, awesome. Are there any recommendations as to how to do health monitoring with any of your projects? I think maybe Dave, you have some experience on some health-related project and connecting Kura to some health sensors, or yeah, is there anything that you guys want to share about building health monitoring projects with your project? Yeah, maybe not. Well, I guess maybe that would bring us to a question, and welcome to Manolis and Marcelo. Maybe before we jump to you guys, and Julian, stop sending bad jokes on IM, please. Yeah, I think France is with us, and maybe you will actually want to join. I think I sent you the link to join. You had a few questions this morning about MQTT-SN. I think there's actually not only your project using MQTT-SN, but a bunch of others. So maybe I will formulate some of your questions so as Ian Craggs, who just joined us, has a chance to answer them, and the others will want to comment. So yeah, MQTT-SN is MQTT for sensor networks, and France, you've started to experiment with those with sensor networks, and you had a few questions like is MQTT-SN a good option to directly connect to the cloud? Is this possible to do to have sleeping nodes with MQTT, or should one rely on MQTT-SN instead? And I think in general you had some questions about using MQTT-SN in that you haven't been able to find too much literature around MQTT-SN, and yeah, there's not that many open source projects around MQTT-SN. So Ian Craggs, welcome and thanks for joining. Maybe you can spend a few minutes talking about and updating all the participants about the current status of MQTT-SN, and maybe give a few pointers as to where people should look if they're interested in learning more about MQTT-SN and or actually playing with MQTT-SN.
Sure, thanks, Benjamin. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly well.
Good. So the thing you should remember, everybody should remember about MQTT-SN is that unlike MQTT, it's not a standard at the moment. So that's one of the reasons that there are lots of implementations of MQTT is it's been standardized at Oasis, whereas MQTT-SN is a proposal, a specification which is under the control of IBM at the moment, and specifically myself, I have some control over that. So there are discussions about whether the functions that are covered by MQTT-SN are best implemented in a separate specification or within the MQTT specification itself. So I'm also part of the MQTT standardization committee, and for the next versions of MQTT there are thoughts about adding MQTT-SN features to MQTT. So in the long run it's possible that those features, that MQTT and MQTT-SN might be merged into one protocol that can cope with TCP connections and non-TCP connections. But for now, we have MQTT and MQTT-SN as separate things. There are a number of implementations of MQTT-SN, but most of these are personal projects, which it doesn't mean that they aren't used for production in some cases, because they are. If you Google for TTSN gateways, for instance, you'll find that there's a guy from Japan who's implemented a gateway, and I know that that's being used by a shop, an IoT shop in New Zealand. But in general, it's hard to find MQTT-SN implementations, definitive ones. So I'm hoping to address that in Paho by creating MQTT-SN specification or implementations that people can use. I've already started on basic embedded client at the very lowest layer. That's complete. That's called MQTT-SN packet. There's a higher level layer, which is a more useful C++ implementation, which is 50% complete, and I've just started on an MQTT-SN to MQTT gateway. So my plans for Paho is that we would have a complete set of components, a client and a gateway, which would enable you to connect non-TCP devices, or like UDP connected devices, using MQTT-SN to an MQTT-SN gateway, which would then enable you to connect to Mosquito and other MQTT servers for a complete solution. We've thought about whether, and I hope to have a good story on that by the middle of this year. So then I would look into creating tutorials and more documentation around MQTT-SN and how you would be able to use the Paho components in your solutions. On the subject of using TTSN for connecting to a cloud service, I think my general view at the moment is that it's better to use MQTT for that, and use MQTT-SN just at the edge for connecting devices into a gateway, and then using MQTT to connect from the gateway into the cloud service. So something like Kura, for instance, the Eclipse Kura project, that's a gateway which uses MQTT to connect to a cloud service. You can also connect other sorts of devices into Kura, like Bluetooth connected devices and the like. So something like Kura or the TTSN gateway, which I'm working on in Paho, would be able to be used at the edge of the network gateway and connect into the cloud service via MQTT. I think one of the problems with TTSN is, if you think about it, using UDP or some other connectionless protocol, is that it might not be suitable for connecting over long-distance WAN connections into a cloud service, and that TCP and MQTT are better suited for that.
Okay. Franz actually joined us. Franz, I hope this helps. Do you have more questions for Ian? I guess one recommendation I would have, and that would probably sort of answer one of the concerns you had, Franz, is that you were sort of mentioning that there's not that many literature around MQTT-SN, etc. So it would probably be best, should you have any question regarding MQTT-SN support in Mosquito or in Paho, to actually send the questions directly to them, to the mailing list of the projects, so as the questions can be answered publicly and can help others in the future, right?
Benjamin, I'd like to make one comment on that.
Sure.
So the question of MQTT-SN support in Mosquito, I've discussed this with Roger before, and I think that it doesn't seem like it's something that's going to happen very quickly. So this is one of the reasons that I'm writing the gateway, so that you can connect MQTT-SN through the gateway into Mosquito. So if the gateway exists in Paho, then this enables people to use Mosquito with MQTT-SN devices.
Okay. So there's now a bunch of questions piling up. Maybe I will try and answer Leon's question very quickly, and maybe Ian will have more comments on that. Question is, if I have some users in the MySQL database and Mosquito as an MQTT broker, can you recommend me strategies for user management in Mosquito? Is there a reliable authentication plugin? So I would certainly, so I'm going to share my screen, and in particular this tab, which is so there is an authentication management system in Mosquito, a plugin mechanism. If you use this sort of meta plugin from JP Mens, you actually have in Mosquito the ability to define an authentication plugin that delegates the actual authentication to several backends. You have support for MySQL, so you can have the users stored in MySQL as you just asked for, Leon, but you can also have the authentication happening on an HTTP web service. It could be LDAP, it could be many different things. So I would highly recommend you look at these first. Maybe Dave or Ian or Julian, actually, do you have other recommendations as to how to manage authentication for MQTT communications?
I'll just say that I don't have any other recommendations. That looks like a good option to me.
Okay. Cool. So that's Leon's question answer, and now I think we have a bunch of people who joined. So I think in order of when they appeared. I think Manolis, maybe you want to share with us where you're at with your project, and maybe you have some questions regarding like what M2M, and maybe Julien can help.
Sure. Yes. Hi.
Welcome.
Thanks for this hangout. I just posted 2 questions in the Q&A as well. So yeah, I'm still at the beginning of the project, to tell you the truth. So I'm just trying to find ways to deal with the device management and P8266. And I was hoping that I would find an Arduino implementation somewhere, because I want to keep the Arduino part, because there are many implementations on the SDK flavor out there. So it would be cool to do something as an Arduino library. So yes, I've seen that you and Julian have read my post. So any feedback on this is more than welcome. And then I have some Kura-related questions, but that's for later.
Okay, so I've seen your post and your email. I wanted to reply, but I need some time. For using Wakama on Arduino, it's possible, but you need to use Arduino Mega, I think. It's not fitting on Arduino Uno, because on Arduino Uno you have maybe a 3K of RAM and I don't remember, but not a lot of flash. But it's doable to run that on a 8-byte microcontroller. It's not really difficult. You need to take Wakama and you take the simple example. And where it's doing UDP communication, you need to plug the Arduino IP stack calls. We don't have a ready-to-use Arduino example, but I know some people from Bosch did that internally, so it's possible. You are not going to be able to have any security if you plan to have a DTLS running for securing your communication. So Arduino is not powerful enough. Yes, but it's not very complicated. You just need to plug the IP stack core inside the loop in the Wakama example. But it's really depending of the Arduino you want to run. Which one you are using? Mute.
Yeah, sorry. When I say Arduino, I mean something Arduino compatible. In fact, I'm using Cortex M3 and above that. So in terms of spec, I'm in the same hardware that you're using. I just want to keep the Arduino library, basically.
Okay, good. So it's very simple to do a portage of Wakama on this kind of platform.
So, Julien, I think I saw maybe sometime in December, I think probably David, one of the committers on Wakama, I think he did start to organize the source code repository so as to make it easier to do some portings, just like porting for Arduino. Are you aware of, do you have any recommendation to Manolis as to how to make sure that the porting is going to do will be something that will be easy to maintain in the future should the code base of Wakama evolve?
Today, I think the best way is to do the modification for running your project and then bring that back to the project to the as a pull request or whatever, or just dropping the code so we can see what you did for porting the code and we can organize the portage. Just make it work, and then we can take care of doing the fix for adding something generic inside the source repository.
Okay, Manolis, you mentioned you also had a question regarding Kura.
Yeah, okay. It's. I think I'm gonna come back with more questions on the Wakama Arduino port, but yeah, I don't have any at this point because I haven't tried it. I mean, yeah. I tried to make it as a library in Arduino, and obviously there were lots of references that were broken. So I guess this is what you're telling me, that I should fix the references in relationship to the SDK that I'm using for the specific board. And once it compiles, then
I think I think you have two things to plug. First is the IP stack. You have basically opening a connection, sending a UDP packet, and receiving a UDP packet. And the second stuff to plug is the time API, because for knowing when we need to send a cooperative try or whatever, we just need to have the time, which is basically the number of seconds since the boot of the machine. So it's very simple. You have just that to plug. If you have any problem or maybe you have more errors, just send an email to the mailing list.
But the tricky part will be the firmware upgrade, right?
Yeah.
Because that's very hardware specific, I guess.
Yeah, it's very platform specific. You need a bootloader for doing that. I never tried on this kind of microcontroller, so I will answer to your email and give you some pointers and ID on this topic. But yes, this one is not simple. Running Wakama on Arduino is probably as an Arduino library on whatever. It's probably easy to do. Maybe you will have some problem, but upgrading firmware over there is really platform dependent. Is really harder.
Okay.
But I will give you some. I will give you some inputs on that.
Okay, thanks. So regarding Kura, Ben, just a quick question, because the truth is that I haven't actually played with it. So maybe this is a lame question, but is there a server-side component, cloud component, that you can manage multiple gateways, or is this something that it's expected to be developed in in every use case using any number of protocols that Kura supports.
So Dave, go ahead if you'd like to answer that one.
Yeah, so there's no actual server-side component to Kura. There are commercial products available. The only real outgoing connection from Kura is via MQTT. So any management you would want to do, at least how we handle it at Eurotech, is we handle all the management and device configurations from our cloud platform via MQTT.
But from over-the-air firmware upgrade point of view, for the actual gateway, I guess MQTT is not a good option. So I don't know. I mean, do you have any recommendations for this? I'm guessing that I need some kind of a tunnel, or because I don't want to set up a VPN for every gateway. So if the gateway is behind a NAT, I need to sort the communications first, and then use a protocol that I can send some bulky files, so I can replace OSGI modules, binders, right?
Yeah, I mean, so it might be more of an MQTT question. I mean, MQTT by itself is pretty agnostic to payload, so you could send whatever you like. It's just going to be a binary stream of information. Obviously, if the firmware upgrade is large, you could run into problems, but as far as I know, MQTT itself would be okay. I mean, we do similar things where we update our gateways over MQTT with some pretty large packages, but it does depend upon a good connection. Like I wouldn't recommend it over cellular, but it is possible. I mean, MQTT at its core is agnostic to what you send. You can send any binary payload.
And if I want to just surf the web interface of Kura from the outside network, what about the NAT connection, the tunneling? Any advice on that one?
So you can configure a lot of the firewall settings, a lot of the Linux level firewall settings from the Kura web UI. But again, Kura is running in a JVM, so it's not too concerned about the Linux level behavior. So if you can set up your device to communicate over the tunnel or over whatever you need, connecting to the web UI should be okay. And we do use VPN on some of our gateways. We just run an extra bundle that we run that runs OpenVPN client, and it works pretty well.
Yeah, the question is, is there something? I mean, ideally, I would like to do this as a Kura component, not outside the Kura environment. I don't want to do it on the operating system. I want to. What I would like to have is a binder that is opening the tunnel for me with a specific server, which is running another application that is doing the Kura management, let's say. So is that what you said, or did you say sorting it out from the outside environment?
Yeah, no. What you just said is completely possible. It's not built into Kura itself. Like the only pieces built into Kura are like some basic firewall management, so opening ports, port forwarding, those sorts of things. If you wanted to set up some higher level communication, that would be like an additional bundle, which is what we do at Eurotech. We run a VPN bundle that creates the client connection to our cloud platform. Does that help, hopefully?
Yeah, okay. Well, at least it's possible, but I guess that's a commercial product or something. It's not open source or anything, right?
It would be additional. It would be additional work. I don't know of any open source contributions to Kura at this point doing that.
Okay.
Like if you want to do is say instruct Kura to change the configuration of a bundle or something like that. You don't necessarily need to do that over the web UI, right? So you can do this over MQTT. So you don't. It's not as difficult to go through NATs, etc. through MQTT, right? You would send a request to the MQTT broker, an MQTT message that the the gateway would receive, listen to, and understand that it's actually a command to execute, and would execute the command and report back again using MQTT, making you able to see the result of whichever command you would have performed. Right.
Right. If we're just talking about updating the configuration, that's all built in the Kura, yes, through the configuration service. But it would be relying on MQTT messaging.
So if you browse, I'm just sharing my my screen right now. On the Kura documentation, you would be able to find the actual format in terms of topics, in terms of payloads for the MQTT messages that would allow you to control the gateway over there. And if you in the Kura web UI, I think it's in the cloud service section. This is where you would configure what's the sort of the unique identifier, the unique prefix for all your MQTT messages, etc. So as once your cloud service is properly configured, it will start listening to the kind of commands that you see in this document. So hopefully that helps. But again, to my point earlier, should you have more questions, the Kura forum would be a great place to ask the questions.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Just one last quick question. Do you have a time frame for Hawkbit?
So I saw your question in the Q&A. I think it's imminent. Last time I talked to the people at Bosch, they were putting together the initial contribution, so the code should be going through IP review pretty soon, which means it won't necessarily be publicly available just yet. The Eclipse Foundation lawyers will actually go through the code base to analyze the code and make sure it's actually good open source code and releasable under EPL. So yeah, I think it's now a matter of weeks. Not sure you will be able to play around with Hawkbit in the context of the challenge, though. I will ask for an update, and I will keep you posted. All right, should we move on to Marcelo? Maybe Marcelo, you want to give a quick overview of what you guys have done so far with IoT into space? Did you actually start sending some stuff into space?
No, we're still steadily on the ground.
Okay. So what do you guys want to do?
Well, first of all, hello guys. Thank you for having us today. Basically, we are starting to put together the stack of IoT into space, and we are starting to figure out which are the main critical points that we're going to find in this kind of project. Because to give you a quick overview of what we are going to send on space and keep on the ground. Basically, we are building this device that we are calling the Space Node, which is basically a Raspberry Pi with a bunch of sensors, which is going to be attached to a weather balloon and be lifted up to the near space, which is about over 32 kilometers up in the sky. The main challenge will be to keep a live connection between the Space Node and what stays on the ground, which we call, unsurprisingly, the ground node. The main problem is that even though we can see into the open source space or also into the commercial space several examples of IoT implementation in a mobility environment. The real problem is that up into space, you don't have a connectivity infrastructure that you can leverage in order to send data. So we have to build our own connectivity infrastructure with a very tight budget. So we're not NASA. We have to keep it sensible in terms of costs, and also we want to prove that this is actually possible. So basically, our approach is to keep the connectivity protocol between the space node and the ground node as simple as possible. So we are just opening a wireless COM between the two devices. But the main problem is to find a radio technology which combines at the same time the range, because we are going at least 32 kilometers. We are talking more about 40 kilometers because of the winds that will be pushing the balloon a bit further. But we will need to do that with very, very low power consumption, because we have to keep the payload, and I'm talking about the weight of the stuff that we're going to send up, sufficiently low in order to get enough lift. We have a third challenge, which is that we are bound to use just the frequencies that are openly available. So we can't go too low in the spectrum, because at least here in Italy, but it's something that is quite widespread, there are quite a few limitations in terms of the kind of spectrum that you're going to use. I see that someone, I don't know who, I think is Manolis, was suggesting that, 6 low pan, low power technology. That is actually, it was the very, very first thing that I look into, but sadly it's not enough. You are not going to achieve that kind of range with 6 low pan, not yet. At least. We found a commercial device which is manufactured by DG, that we have seen some other experiences from other guys that already sent some weather balloons up into space, that combined with a high gain antenna, we are talking about 8 dBi antenna, it's going to make it, keeping the device, the overall weight low enough, and without a power consumption that will drain the battery too fast. So this is the main challenge, actually, to be honest, that we are going to face. And one other challenge that we are actually throwing ourselves is the fact that we want to experiment in this project. So we are going to send up into space a Raspberry Pi with Kura, but for the ground node, we wanted to use something different. So we are actually going to use Windows IoT core to power a Raspberry Pi 2 that we're keeping into the ground node, and we are actually looking if it's possible in terms of the time and resources that we're able to throw into this project to actually try and port Kura to Windows IoT core. That would be very, very cool, but I'm not actually sure that we're going to make it. So it is possible that we will just build something running on Windows IoT core, and we'll basically receive data from the serial COM and encapsulate those data stream into MQTT to the Eurotech Kura cloud that will again throw the data back to the Solar platform that we will use for the presentation layer.
Okay, and so what kind of applications do you plan on hosting in the air? Because I mean, you were mentioning that you want to be careful about power consumption and such, but still you're going to embed a full JVM and Kura, etc. So I'm assuming this is because you want to host quite complex application up in the cloud, or?
Yeah, basically what we want to try and prove is the fact that technology nowadays reaches a point where you are not limited to be need to send in this kind of environment just a microcontroller with limited computational capabilities, but you are actually able to send a full-featured computer with an real-time operating system where you can actually perform high-level activities. So what we are going to try and do live while the balloon will lift up is actually provision different configuration to device in order to apply different analysis on the data stream that we get from the sensor that we will have on board. We're talking about temperature sensor, accelerometer, and so on, in order to get from the space node not just a raw data stream that we are going to just relay on the cloud, but we are going to try and get directly on the edge, directly on the device that we're going to put up into space, to get out of it some relevant information actually derived by high-level processes that we are going to run on Kura as OSGI bundles.
Okay, cool. So when do you plan on sending the first prototypes?
Well, actually, we are limited in terms of time because another very big challenge that we face in this kind of project is the bureaucracy. Because you cannot, at least in Europe, you cannot just go into an open field, inflate a balloon, let it lift. You have to actually notify the aviation authority for your launch, and you are actually you have to do that at least 45 days prior to the launch itself. So we are going to see as we notified just a few days ago. We are seeing the second half of February as a time frame that when we are going to actually start and sending the balloon up. Prior to that, we are going to perform a few test lifts with balloons still attached to a cord, so balloons that will go up just a few hundred meters.
Pretty cool. So yeah, we'll be all looking forward to your next blog posts then.
Sorry, Ben, very quickly. LoRa technology is not a 6-low-pan technology, and they're sending balloons with LoRa transceivers.
Are they?
That they're speaking that they can connect to more than 250 kilometers away. So I think it's the perfect technology for you. It's called LoRa.
What kind of balloon are they sending up?
They're sending microcontrollers, not obviously not full-blown Raspberry Pis, but in terms of wireless technology, I think this is perfect for you guys because you can adjust the bandwidth depending on the distance that you want to achieve. So if you're going vertical, then you can increase the bandwidth.
Yeah. I actually read 6-low-pan. I apologize, Manolis. The LoRa is actually it was one of the options that we had. Is a technology fully capable of doing that. I confirm. We are going with this kind of device just for a matter of mere costs. These are the lower cost devices capable of this kind of performance that we could put our hands on.
Sorry for insisting. It's just that I'm working on these chips right now. You can get them for $9. So
okay, so we definitely need to have a conversation in private.
Okay, you should check out microchip RN 2483. This is a module that you can get. It's a complete module.
Okay, cool. I will reach out to you in the next few days for sure.
Great, so I'm happy the Hangouts has helped, at least in that regard. Should we move on to, and I don't know what are your time constraints, people, but hopefully we can stop in just a few minutes, so as if people have engagements at the next hour, they can move on. So Yes, Shartak, would you want to update us on your CropNext project? I think you've been sending a few blog posts on the Tumblr and a few videos, but maybe you want to give us more information and ask some questions if you have any.
Yeah, sure. So CropNext is a basic project. The aim is basically to monitor health of crops. So basically in India and other developing countries, what happens that farmers don't actually know that which fertilizer should they use and all those, and they also don't know that how much water should they actually give to the plants. So basically the project is actually to make a device that can be installed in a farm and then can give updates about the farm, like now you want to give some water and now you have to put this fertilizer and that. So this is the basic device that I've built just now. So I built this a week ago. I'll just increase the quality. This is the whole device. So currently it's in this prototype stage, so it has sensors in it. It can insert into soil and then can send real-time data.
So what are you measuring? The humidity, and do you measure as well like the level of nutrients that there?
Yeah. So we are measuring things like first of all it is pH, soil moisture, humidity, temperature, and soil nitrogen. Currently we are only measuring these kind of factors, and then I am taking some datasets from the Agriculture Ministry of India and USDA department, and from those accesses I am trying to make a device that can actually inform people about any issues.
Okay. So on the server side, what are you using at the moment?
So currently in the server side, I haven't not worked a lot, but we are using a MySQL database in the backend. All this data is captured and then it is sent to this database. So my server is and notifying the farmers and all, and we are collecting all the data sets and all.
Okay. Do you have any questions to the participants? Well, it could be David, Ian, Julien, or we've just learned that people like Manolis are also very knowledgeable on radio networks. So do you have any questions, anything anyone could do to help you with your project?
Yeah, so can you suggest me how should I actually fabricate this thing? Because I'm actually going to the agriculture ministry every time, and they are asking me to show a good prototype. So I want to show this thing in a good way. So which method should I use? Currently, we are trying to do some 3D printing on this thing.
So did you find any existing 3D designs that you could be basing your own design on top of? Or will you design something from scratch? I think we lost you. That's too bad. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. Well, maybe I don't know if Juan is still with us. There were a few questions on the Q&A. Let's see if we can answer those, and after that, I guess we will call it a day. So Juan is building a greenhouse automation platform, and he wants to explore standards like Zigbee, using Kura as a gateway, also testing AT&T M2X. Don't know what AT&T M2X is. AWS IoT, other backend as a service with MQTT support. But they all have different specs, so they want to have. Yeah, okay. I think the question is how to make a solution, say, a Kura-based solution compatible with different backends. Like typically, someone who uses Kura would have out-of-the-box support for Eurotech Cloud. it should not be that difficult to talk to AWS IoT. But Dave, do you have any hints as to how to minimize the level of effort should people want to switch from Eurotech to AWS or from AWS to Azure? I guess this is not in Eurotech's interest, right? But it's in the interest of making it easy for people to evaluate what's the best cloud server for their specific need, right?
Yeah, so I think when you look at Kura, you'll see that the transport layer has a couple different options, a couple different services, and depending on which service you pick will dictate how much Kura gets involved in managing your connection. So I think, actually, Benjamin has had a greenhouse example up for quite some time that uses one of the lower levels, which allows him to have complete control over the topic space and messages that he sends. So I think if you're not going to use Eurotech's cloud, you might be well served to use one of the lower levels, using the data service directly. So I think that would be the best place to start, is just look at the different service, like the data service and the cloud service, and really understand the differences in the two and the trade-offs in using one over the other. That would be my recommendation.
I hope this answers Juan's question, and hopefully Juan was still with us. So I think we actually ran out of questions. Unfortunately, we lost Sartak in the process. But I mean, I don't know what you guys thought, but there were certainly more people showing up than what I expected, and it was quite interactive. I think it was helpful for some of you guys to get some answers. So let's see if there's interest well, Juan was still with us and is actually thanking us for the answer, so that's great. So yeah, the challenge ends at the end of February, so maybe sometime early February we will do something similar. Thanks so much to Dave, Ian, and Julian for joining us and making this. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to answer most of the questions. So yeah, to all the participants, should you have more questions, feel free to either direct the question at me directly and I will dispatch them, or you can, again, I will reiterate that you should definitely use the project's mailing list to ask questions, and of course Twitter and the Tumblr to share the updates on your project. So thank you all for attending. This was recorded, by the way. This will be on YouTube, so this might be a valuable resource should you need to find some of the links that were shared, etc. I'm not so sure about the conversation between Marcelo and Manolis. Like Marcelo, you should probably copy-paste some of the links that were shared in the chat. I'm pretty sure they will disappear once we go offline. So yeah, thanks again, and I will just stop the broadcast. And if you guys if the panelists, if you guys would still like to discuss offline, I think we will still be online after we stop the broadcast. So bye-bye.